Welcome aboard Just Jets with your captain, Matt O'Leary. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary, back with another episode of Just Jets. What's going on? Welcome to an NFL Draft Mailbag edition. This show is going to be strictly questions. For the most part, I'm going to do a little bit of monologue in the beginning, not as much as usual. Usually I like to do about 10 minutes before I get into the questions, if not a little bit more. It's only going to be a few minutes before I get into the questions because there's a ton. And a shout out to you guys. We have 15 questions to get through. Most of them are about the NFL Draft. So this episode title is, I guess, going to be NFL Draft Mailbag. But that's really the big thing this month. And thank God for the NFL Draft, guys. Really. Because without sports right now, I'm going crazy. I don't know about you. We're in about a month of quarantine right now. There's no NHL. As you can see the flags behind me if you're watching live on YouTube. If you're not, if you're listening to the podcast where I'm doing this in my little studio here in my home, there is some flags behind me. And I have the Mets flag, which the Mets aren't playing. The Islanders flags here. No Islanders either. No football, obviously, in the spring. So the draft is literally the only thing I have going for me in the sports world. That's it. That's the only thing, so I can't wait to watch it. April 23rd can't get here fast enough. And I dropped my mock draft earlier this week. I did a 7-round mock draft for the New York Jets. No trades in that one. I'm going to do another one probably at some point this week and talk about maybe some trades. Throw that in there. Get a little creative. Move down, move up. We'll see. But this episode 9 of Just Jets, is going to be all about the NFL Draft for the most part, with a couple of questions on some other things. And we're going to get into those questions now. I mean, why? You didn't come here to just hear me monologue and talk about some crazy things. We're just going to get into the questions this week. And I'm looking forward to it. The first one's from Big Green. He's going to talk about Avery Williamson and what his trade value could potentially be. Let's hear from him.
Hey, Matt. Big Green here. I just want to congratulate you, Green Bean, David, and
Ryan?
Oh my God, Ryan. I can't think
there
of
we
the
go.
guy's name for a second. But I was curious about asking you about what do you think Avery Williamson would be worth if we were to trade him during the draft, and how much compensation we'd be able to get for him. Considering we're so deep at the middle linebacker position, and teams would not really be paying much for him. It would be paying like pennies, since we already took care of most of his contract. And what teams do you think would be interested in him? All right, have a good one. Thanks. Bye.
Love the question here, my man. So I think the first thing we have to talk about is if you were trading him just straight up, which I don't think it would be. We're going to get into the full answer here. But if you're trading him just straight up, I think you're looking at probably like a 3rd or a 4th round pick, somewhere in that area. Because, I mean, he's a middle linebacker, inside linebacker. If he was fully healthy, played last year, had 80 tackles, maybe you're getting a 2nd or a 3rd. I think you're probably looking at about a 3rd or a 4th. But, and this is going to get into the team who I think might be interested. Baltimore. Oh, they need an inside linebacker. They need one badly. And I think if you package him with a pick to move up to where Baltimore is picking in the 1st round, now we're getting a little interesting. That's not a Matt O'Leary original. That has been brought up on the Talking Jets panel a million times. So if you haven't seen that, go to Jets Talk 24/7's channel. That's where we do it every Tuesday night. We talk Jets for an hour or two. And that's brought up on that channel a ton, and on that show a ton. But I think that's the situation that makes the most sense if you're going to trade him. One, Baltimore, because they have a need at that position, clearly. And I think packaging him with a pick in order to move up in the draft, I think, is ultimately where I'm getting here. Baltimore seems to make the most sense. Maybe the Raiders, because I could see them looking to take a linebacker. Saints, maybe. I know that they have... oh, my God. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name right now. God. Demario Davis, former Jet Demario Davis at linebacker, but I think they could probably use another one, and maybe Avery Williamson would be a fit there. Next one's from Elias, who wants to talk about the kicking situation. Let's hear from Elias. Thank you for the question, Big Green, by the way.
Hey, Matt. This is Elias from Rochester, New York.
Elias, sorry.
My question was, what do you think the Jets should do about their kicker situation? I don't want Sam Ficken again. That was kind of a nightmare. Do you think they should maybe go sign Gostkowski from the Patriots, who I believe got cut? Or do you think they should maybe draft someone in the late round? And also, what do you think they should do about their punter situation, since it doesn't seem like Lachlan Edwards is coming back? All right, thanks, Matt. Go Jets.
Okay, so I don't like the idea of drafting a kicker. I just think you could wait and pick one up as an undrafted free agent who's usually pretty solid, or sign someone in free agency. I would not use one of your picks in the first 7 rounds on a kicker. I just wouldn't. Me personally, I know everyone likes Rodrigo Blanco Check or whatever the heck his name is. I definitely just butchered his name. Rodrigo Blanket Chip. What the heck's his name? I'm gonna Google it right now, just because this is great podcasting, by the way. But yeah, I was right. Rodrigo Blankenship. There we go. But I'm not drafting a kicker. I'm signing Gostkowski exactly like you said. That move seems to make the most sense. Yes, he's coming off an injury, but he is one of the better kickers in the game. I just don't think the Patriots wanted to pay him. They were in a cap crunch, clearly. That would be my move. Lachlan Edwards, to me, I'd bring back. I think he's a pretty good punter, and there's not too many punters on the free agent market, so maybe a guy like Matt Bosher, I think, is one of the only punters remaining who you could potentially get that. Because, again, I'm not taking someone in the draft, so I'm not going to sit here and go through prospects or find the undrafted free agent, but I think Lachlan Edwards has been pretty solid. Next up is Sam from New Jersey, and he wants to talk about wide receivers. And thank you, Elias, for the question.
Hey, Matt. This is Sam from New Jersey. I'm actually watching your show right now.
Love
you
it.
might hear your voice in the background. But I have a question about second-round receivers. So in a lot of mock drafts, I see either it's like interchangeable. I see Denzel Mims or Brandon Ayuk. You could throw Laviska Shenault in there, going one or two of the spots in the first round. So I was wondering if you think any of them will fall to 48. And I would say throw in Jalen Reagor into that mix as well. I'm not high on Michael Pittman. Obviously at 48, you touched on it on this most recent episode. I don't think we should take him at 48. Potentially, third round. But I was just wondering what you think about, taking one of those guys in the second round if we take an offensive tackle in the first. All right, thanks.
Thank you so much for the question, Sam. I agree with Pittman. I think he's a third-round target. I wouldn't take him in the second round. Of those guys, I think you're going to see one of them fall. Reagor, I don't know if I want to go with, because to me he looks more of a slot guy, and with Crowder already, you're kind of getting redundant, and you have, I almost said Pittman, Perryman on the outside already, who's a speed guy. So I think you're looking for a little bit more of a bigger receiver, so Mims would be perfect for that. Ayuk, to me, seems like the guy who's going to be there. Spoiler, he was in my mock draft this week in the second round. I think he's one of the guys who's available, and if he is available in the second, I take him. I think he projects as a wide receiver too in the NFL. I think it makes the most sense of those guys. Like Sam said, I'm not really big on Pittman in the first 2 rounds. I would like him in the third round if you, for whatever reason, want to convince me that you're going to double up on offensive linemen in the first 2 rounds, or address another position of need in the second round and wait to take Pittman's there with your first third round pick, and you do it like that. Okay, you know what? I'll be sitting here and say that's fine. But if I had my choice, I think in this situation, Ayuk is most likely the one who's going to be there, and I would be perfectly fine taking him. Next up is Zach from New Jersey. He wants to talk about Blesson Austin and the possibility of drafting a running back. So let's hear from Zach.
Hey, Matt. It's Zach from Jersey. Big fan of the show. I kind of have 2 questions for you. One being, what's your thoughts on Bless on Austin? I'm a Rutgers alumni myself, so I'm really rooting for the kid. Injuries aside, which I know is a huge concern, I really think he has the potential. I mean, to be at least a cornerback two on our team. He really held his own in those last games during the season. I know they weren't against the greatest competition, but regardless, it was really impressive to see him with a 6th-round pick. So I guess I'm just asking, what do you think his ceiling would be? As for my second question, do you see the Jets and Joe Douglas, drafting a running back in day 3, just kind of as a backup for Le'Veon, considering I think it's doubtful we bring back Ty Montgomery, and seeing Bilal Powell is getting up there in age. Someone like an Anthony McFarland, who I think is a great sleeper in this class. Just really curious on your thoughts on that. Thank you. Have a great one, man. Love the show. Bye.
Thank you so much for the question, Zach. We'll start with Bless. I think he was a lot better than I expected him to be in his first year, honestly. I wasn't a fan, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a fan of the pick because you just took a cornerback in the 6th round the year before in Perry Nickerson. Some people were high on him. I thought he could potentially be a Buster Screen replacement in the slot. That didn't work out. And I saw Bless on Austin's injury history, and that really scared me. He was banged up this year. He only played in about half the games this year. Part of it was injuries, part of it was performance. But to me, he reminds me of Antonio Cromartie. And I'm not the only one who have said this because he's tall, he's lanky, he wears the same number as him. I think he could be a solid second cornerback. I don't think he's ever going to be like someone who you just put on somebody's best receiver and they shut him down. But I think he could be a very good starting outside corner. So like a cornerback number 2 on a good team. Kind of like what Antonio Cromartie was with the Jets. I don't think anyone would ever say that he was a bona fide number 1 corner in this league, but he was a very, very good number 2 corner. And I think for Bless, he could be, just a solid outside starting corner. I definitely think the Jets should draft a running back too in the mid rounds. I love values of running backs in the mid rounds, in rounds 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that. I agree with you. McFarland would definitely be someone that I'd be looking at. Some other names that I'll throw out there: Keyshawn Vaughn, I like a lot. A.J. Dillon, I like a lot. And Cam Akers, I don't know if he'll be there in round 3. I don't think I'd go running back in round 2. I think I really would try to go wide receiver. But if Cam Akers is there, man, in round 3, I'd really think long and hard about pulling the trigger. I understand that there's other positions of needs, but I don't expect Le'Veon to be here long term. I think you could get out of his contract after this year and not have a major cap hit. So to me, I'm looking to get another running back in here. I love Bilal Powell, but like the caller said, like Zach said, he's old. He's getting old. He's done it for a long time. As one of the biggest Bilal Powell fans you will find on the internet, believe me, go back and read through my tweets. He's getting up there. I mean, if you bring him back and draft running back, great. And the crazy thing, I know I've said it on here and on other videos, but the crazy thing last year, and this goes back to part of my dislike for Adam Gase, he had 3 good running backs on the roster. Le'Veon Bell is a very good running back. There's no denying that. Maybe he's not as good as what he was in Pittsburgh, but he's still a very solid running back. Ty Montgomery is a very unique piece. He could do a lot of things. Bilal Powell, one of the most underrated running backs of the last decade. He's been in the league since 2011, which is insane. And the Jets have underutilized him just about every single year. But they never, ever would put 2 of them on the field at the same time. It was crazy. You could run Le'Veon Bell in the slot. You could have both Bilal Powell and another running back in the backfield because all 3 of them are good, can run the ball. All 3 of them can catch out of the backfield. And you know for a fact that Bilal Powell and Le'Veon Bell are very good in pass protection. It made 0 sense. I know I just went on a mini rant, a little bit off topic, but to answer the question, yes. I think running back is definitely a position I would look at somewhere between round 3 and round 5 for me. Next up is Matt from Stony Brook. And let's hear the question from Matt. Oops, wrong one. My bad.
Hey, Matt. It's Matt from Stony Brook, New York. I have a question about a potential scenario in that the first three offensive tackles are off the board, say Wills, Wirfs, and Thomas, and the Jets are saying they were expecting at 11. I know Kyle Shanahan apparently is enamored with Jerry Jeudy. Is it possible that they make a trade back to 13 so the 49ers could leapfrog the Raiders for Jerry Jeudy, and the Jets sit there at 13, potentially taking Becton and picking up an extra pick in the process? Thanks for taking my call. Love the show.
This is a really interesting idea. I like this a lot because, okay, we know the 49ers traded with the Colts and were able to get a first-round pick. Understandable. They are picking at 13. I'd imagine that they're going to want to acquire more picks because they have 2 in the first round, but then they don't pick again until like round 4 or 5. They got a long way to go. I think it's round 5, but don't quote me on that. You have 2. I think they're going to try to trade their later pick back and acquire like 1 or 2 picks in like the second and third round maybe, and then you're looking pretty good. But with pick 13, you'd have to imagine that they're looking to take a wide receiver. That's one of the positions of need for this team, for sure. I don't know. I don't know if I could see them trading back the 2 spots. I like the idea. I just don't know how realistic it is in Joe Douglas's mind. I think it would be smart. If they did this, love it. Absolutely love it. Because, one, you're picking up more draft picks, which the Jets have a ton of needs. Get as many draft picks as possible. I'm about it. And you're helping out another team outside of the conference even. I really, really like the idea. It's not something that I've ever thought about doing before. I don't know how realistic it is because I just don't know if I think Joe Douglas, if one of the 4 big guys are on the board at 11, I just think he's going to hand in the card with whoever's left. That's what I think. I don't see him trading back in that scenario. If all 4 are gone, let's say it like this. If all 4 are gone and then a team like San Francisco wants to move up, or even maybe Philly, and you want to move back and take Josh Jones, the tackle out of Houston, I could maybe see him doing that. I just don't think Joe Douglas is going to pass on one of those 4 big names from the offensive tackle position. I really don't. But I love the idea, Matt. That's really creative and outside the box. I like it a lot. Next up is Tommy from Virginia. He wants to get in wide receiver versus tackle.
Hey, Matt. This is Tommy from Virginia. So I was just wondering, if we do end up going wide receiver in the first round, do you think we could get like a day 1 starter at tackle, like a quality starter in the later rounds? Or do we really need to get that first round tackle? Thanks.
Okay. I think that it depends on where, if you're saying that, okay, we're going to stay at 48, your second round pick, where you're picking it in the second, and take the best tackle then, I'd lean towards probably not. I would think that you would have to move up because the last guy that I am comfortable with is Ezra Cleveland, who I don't think is going to be there at 48. So I think you would have to move up. Ideally, you're taking a tackle at 11 and then taking a wide receiver in the second round. I've said it for a long time. I just think that makes the most sense because there's a bigger drop-off or you're not going to get the same kind of production. So I'm doing a bad job of explaining it. In the second round, you are more likely to find a wide receiver who could be productive for you than an offensive tackle. I think that's how I want to describe it. Whereas, yes, you might have in where you're picking at 11, Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb. There's a very good chance one of those 2, if not both, will be available. And I think they'll both be very good in this league. But when you look at the tackles, the ones who could start for you on day 1 are going to be gone by the next time you pick again. So I think you're probably better off taking because I think probably 3 are going to be off the board. If you're taking the 4th best tackle available or the number 1 wide receiver, I know that sounds crazy from that perspective, but you got to go the offensive lineman in that spot. You have to. I hope that answers your question, Tommy. Next up is Jack. He is calling from New Jersey and wants to talk about trading up.
Hi, Matt. This is Jack calling from New Jersey. My question for you is if Joe Douglas particularly likes one offensive tackle much more than the other 3 tackles, and of course these tackles would be Wirfs, Becton, Thomas, and Wills. Say that offensive tackle that he extremely likes is still there at pick 8 where the Cardinals pick. Could you see him possibly trading to that spot to get that offensive tackle that he really likes. This came to my mind because I'm sure Joe Douglas may get really particular about the offensive tackle he wants because that guy is going to be protecting Darnold for the next 5+ years. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, Jack, I mean, I get that logic, and I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Douglas maybe he only likes half of the big four. Maybe he only likes 2 out of the 4 or 3 out of the 4. But I just don't think the Jets have the draft capital in order to move up. They have too many needs on this team. So if you're going into it without a second-round pick for a 3rd year in a row, I can't do that. I don't think the Jets are in the position to do that. You look at this team, they have so many holes. And ones that are an important position. Left tackle is one of the most important positions in football. Outside of the quarterback position, left tackle is probably next important. That's a need. Wide receiver is a need for this team. Edge is a need for this team. Corner is a need for this team. Depth at the running back position. Pretty much anything outside of middle linebacker and defensive line and safety. You have good depths at those positions. And a little bit on the interior offensive line. You can use a little bit more talent there. I know he brought in a lot of bodies, but you still have to draft. In this year's draft, I would say probably you'd be set on depth for offensive line for a little bit with still needing to add to it as guys get older and move out. This team doesn't have enough depth. That's one of their big issues. So I don't think you're going to be able to trade your 2nd and 3rd round pick and get up there and take a offensive tackle. I understand wanting to go get your guy. I get that. But I just don't think the Jets are in the position to do that this year. All right, Junior from the Bronx is up next. We're talking wide receivers.
Hey, Matt. It's me, Junior from New York, Brooklyn. I'm calling to ask you 2 questions. Do you think Chase, the wide receiver from LSU, would it be like in the top 3, like in front of Judy and CD, if he would have come out in these drafts? Okay. And then the second question, what do you think we're gonna do with the kicker, spot, since we need a kicker? Go Jets.
Okay. So he is talking about Jamar Chase, the wide receiver for LSU. I think he's good. I definitely think he's going to come out next year. He's going to be a 1st-round pick for sure, unless something catastrophic happens, obviously. But I expect him to be taken in the 1st round. I really like Judy and CeeDee Lamb. So I would probably put him 3rd after that. Ruggs is right there, too. It's close between... How about this? It's very close between Ruggs and Chase. Fair enough. I think that's where I'm at with them. And for the kicking situation, sign Steven Gostkowski. I think that's the easy route. I don't want to use a draft pick on a kicker. I really don't. Next up is Terrence, and he's got a question about Henry Ruggs.
All right, Matt, I got a question. Terrence from Denver. You already have a slot receiver in Crowder. Why not go to Ruggs if he's not as big as the other wide receivers? But he's got more catches from contested space. His speed, his athleticism, his hands. I don't care that he's a smaller receiver on the outside. I just care about the production, and he's always produced in college.
I think that's a fair point. And the Jets supposedly liked Henry Ruggs at the Combine. There was some talk about that. If you took him ahead of the other 2 receivers, I think that's probably a reach. But I really like Ruggs as a prospect. I don't have an issue with what you just said here. I understand. I think it would be a fit. I know you just signed Perryman, who's a speedster too, but you can't have enough speed in the NFL. You really can't. The game is changing. You need guys who are fast. That's why I wanted Robbie Anderson brought back, continuity reasons with Sam Darnold. I thought that he could be a 1,000-yard receiver with a healthy quarterback for 16 games. Nonetheless, they bring in Perriman, who I think is a very solid option, plan B option. I think you could expect him to have probably, I'm going to guess somewhere between 600 and 800 receiving yards is probably where you're going to be looking at. I don't think he hits 9. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think he's in 600, 700, 800 range, somewhere in there. And if you put Ruggs on the other side, oh man, that'd be a fun offense. It really would. I really don't hate what you said there, Terrence. Next up is Sam from Florida. We're talking NFL draft, obviously, so let's get into it.
What's up, Matt? This is Sam from Florida. I'm a big fan of your show. I'm here to talk about the NFL draft. So my stance on the draft is if Wirfs or Jedrick Wills are on the board at 11, which they probably won't be, I'd take one of them. I like Wirfs better, to be honest, but
Okay.
I don't think that's going to happen. So if they're not on the board, I'd go wide receiver with Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb. But my question here is, I personally don't think any of the 4 linemen are going to be on the board at 11. And if that was the case, I'd go receiver still. But I was wondering what you would think. Do you think any of the big 4 are going to be on the board? And if they're not, what would you do? Thank you. That's it. That's my question. See.
Okay, I really love that question a lot. I think that there is a risk of all 4, being gone. So I want to pull up the draft order right now, and we can go through, because I think if I had to bet, I'm going to say that 3 are off the board by the time the Jets are picking at 11. NFL draft order is what I want to pull up, because I want to look at the different teams who could potentially take tackles. The Giants at 4 should take a tackle, but they're probably going to take Isaiah Simmons. But theoretically, the Giants could be a team that takes a tackle. The Chargers are probably taking a quarterback, but they are a team that can go tackle. Arizona, I think, is a team that's definitely going tackle. Jacksonville probably could go tackle. Cleveland could probably is probably going tackle. Of the teams in the top 10, I think you are guaranteed Cleveland and Arizona taking a tackle. So that's 2. I gave you 5 possibilities. So I'm going to say of the other 3, another tackle is off the board. So I think 1 is left at 11. If all 4 are off the board, what I would do is take Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb, whichever one is there. What I think Joe Douglas would do is trade back and take Jones, which isn't an awful idea. It's not. But I think I would do the reversal on it. I think I would take the receiver and then move up with my 2nd and 3rd round pick, get back into the 1st round, and take Jones or Jackson or Cleveland, one of those guys. That would be my plan of attack. Again, I don't think that's what Joe Douglas would do. I think he would try to move back to a team who would really, really want a wide receiver and then just take Jones there. So maybe he moves back, I don't know, 4 spots, 5 spots. I don't know. I think that would probably be his move. I would be surprised if all 4 are gone. Certainly a possibility. Like, there's needy teams in there, but I think at least one of them. If I had to bet today, I think it's going to be Becton. That's going to be my guess. And I agree. It's Wills or Wirfs are not going to be there. I think they're the first 2 off the board. And I think Thomas goes to Cleveland. We're going to get back to the calls now. Good friend Travis from Ohio. Let's hear from it. Always Electric Factory.
Hey, Matt. Travis from Ohio. Love ya. Happy Easter. And stay healthy, please. Go Jets always. Slew News Week. Just wanted to fire off. If you had a Mount Rushmore of Jets, not naming Namath, what 4 would they be? And since we didn't get Tui or Robbie Anderson for the cartwheel deal, what could possibly be the next cartwheel deal? Anyway, love you. Keep on. Go Jets.
Love you, Travis. For me, all right, let's go. Strike that. Let's go with the cartwheel thing first. Let's have some fun. We'll make it NFL draft related. So, if the Jets take Jedrick Wills, I will do a cartwheel. That is something that I would be happy about and do a cartwheel about. How about that? And then if that doesn't work, I will think of something for during the season. Fair? I will do a cartwheel. If I get excited enough, I will do another cartwheel. As far as the Mount Rushmore, okay. I was kind of buying myself some time because I had to think this one over. No Namath. Maynard, Don Maynard still has to be on there. Klecko, I'd probably put on there. I'd go Curtis Martin and then Revis. Those are my 4. I'd really probably Gastineau would be honorable mention, I think, in that spot. Or maybe you swap Gastineau for Klecko. But I'll stick with my original. Maynard, Martin, Klecko, and Revis. That would be my Mount Rushmore. Let's go to Greg, who is calling about the NFL draft. Let's hear from Greg.
Matt, it's Greg again. What's going on, man? This is my second time calling in. And like I said before, bro, I love the podcast. I love the way you describe everything, like the way you're doing everything stats-wise. I think you're probably the best person. Nothing against Ryan or anybody else, Gangrene David, Green being out there. They do good jobs. I just prefer your podcast. And against them, I just think you do it better. But no big deal. We're not making we're not making anything like a race, I guess. But calling in because the draft is coming up pretty soon. So I think what the Jets should do, and like you said, is that if anything, if there's not your top 4 offensive linemen on the board, we should give Sam Darnold a weapon. Why not go CeeDee Lamb? I think CeeDee Lamb, with his height and his weight and he's a brolic dude, man. Like, he can make it happen. If you're, 20, okay, you're in the 20-yard zone, right? You're going, you're pretty much in the red zone at that point. So you need to make points. We need to stack on points. We did not do very good last season with good points. So with giving a guy like CeeDee Lamb, he's your number 1 top receiver, you make him happen. We lost Anderson to Carolina. But I just think a wide receiver would be great in this aspect. Yes, if we could get an offensive lineman, that'd be great. If they're all gone, I just think that the best route to do is get some weapons, man. Let me know how you think, man. Take it easy.
All right. That's a long way of talking about that wide receiver should be the pick. While I agree that if the 4 offensive linemen are gone, taking a wide receiver at 11 isn't a bad idea if it's CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy. I prefer Jeudy over Lamb, but it's very close. You can convince me on both. I think you'd be more likely to see the Jets trade back and take Josh Jones. I would be very, very surprised if the Jets go wide receiver in round 1. Based off everything we've seen from Joe Douglas, he's a former offensive lineman. He knows how important the trenches are. He said to Sam Darnold's mother that he's going to protect her son. Said that. Real thing. I'm not making that story up. Google it. He's going to draft an offensive lineman. I think in the first round for sure. So appreciate the question. I understand the sentiment of wanting to go with one of those 2 guys. They're flashy. They would be so much fun to watch. I understand that. I'm not saying that I don't like any of those 2 guys. I'm just basing this off what I think Joe Douglas is going to do. And based on everything we've seen, I don't think he's going to go wide receiver in the first round. Next up, we're going to go to Ali, calling from upstate New York. So let's hear from Ali.
Hey, Matt. It's Ali Lewis from upstate New York, around the Newburgh area. I called with a question like 2 weeks ago. My question this week is, our defense is pretty solid. I know that we are lacking in the area of corners, and I was hoping that you could discuss what round and who potentially we could take at cornerback in the draft. I know around like 3 or 4 are best, but I know it is a need for us, and I was wondering how soon do you think we could take one? Thanks.
All right. Absolutely. I agree 100% with Ali, man. A cornerback is one of the rare positions of need on the defensive side of the ball. Corner and edge are really the only 2 positions I would be comfortable taking in this draft. I don't want another defensive lineman. I don't want another inside linebacker. I don't want another safety in this draft. If you're going to take someone on the defense side of the ball, it better be edge or corner. I agree also that round 3 or round 4 is where you want to look for a cornerback. And some names for you: Troy Pride Jr., Notre Dame, I think would make sense. The other Lamar Jackson from Nebraska, the corner, he's tall and lanky. I like him. And somebody I really like a lot, Darnay Holmes out of UCLA. Those 3 guys. I gave you 3 guys who I would be comfortable taking in rounds 3 or round 4. I think that you can get by with what you have in terms of starters. Poole's going to be in the slot. We know that. You brought in Desir, who's going to be your number 1 corner, essentially. And then I think you can get by with Blesson Austin on the other side. I think you're looking for depth for right now. And if you get one of those 3 guys in round 3 or round 4, I think that would just add depth to the unit. And legitimate depth. Who's someone who could maybe develop into a starter one day. For sure. So I'm going with one of those guys, Ali. I hope that answers your question. Moving right along here, we're going to go to Steve in Colorado. Wants to talk about some mid-round receivers.
Hey, Matt. This is Steve calling from Colorado once again, and I have a question for you. The Jets will probably take offensive linemen in the first round. We know that. We also know the big 4 receivers will be gone in the first round: Judy Lambs, Ruggs, Jefferson.
Yep.
There's a good possibility that the big 4 in the second round will be gone: Rager, Mims, Chenault, and Ayuk. So my question to you is, who do you like in the third round if we had to pick between Pittman, Edwards, Claypool, Peoples-Jones, Gandy Golden, and even Van Jefferson? I just want to know who you like and why you like them. Thanks. I'll be listening to your show on Monday. Bye.
Love it. Thank you so much for the question. I'll give you 2 guys who you listen to who I really like a lot. Pittman. I know that's crazy because you're saying, well, hold on. Didn't you just say that you didn't want the Jets to take him at 48? Yes. I think you'd be reaching for him in the second round. But as a prospect in the third round, and if he's available, I would really like him there. He's 6'4". He's going to be a possession receiver. I think he's someone who could start on the other side as your second wide receiver on day 1. I really do. And he's 6'4". The other guy's Claypool, also 6'4", big body. Notice how both of those guys are bigger. I think when you look at what the New York Jets need, it's a bigger body receiver, potential red zone threat. And I think both of those guys fit the mold perfectly. Van Jefferson is more of a slot guy, if I'm not mistaken. Like his skill set, but not necessarily a need. Pittman and Claypool, of the guys you mentioned, those would be the 2 that I would be comfortable with taking in the third round. Last question is from Quadrice. He is calling from Elizabeth, New Jersey. And we're going to talk a little bit about Yannick Ngakoue to close it out.
Yes, this is Quadrice from Elizabeth, New Jersey. I'm calling because I would have a question to ask. What if one of the top 4 offensive linemen is off the board at 11, and we trade that 11 pick to Jaguars for the defensive end? I probably pronounced his name wrong. Yannick Ngakoue. What do you think about that? Thank you.
While I like Yannick Ngakoue a ton, I can't give up the 11th overall pick for him. If you can get him for a second and a third round pick, I'll probably do it. I think some team's going to give him a first round pick in the whether it be Miami, who has multiple firsts, or a team later on. I just don't think the New York Jets are in a position where they can give up a first round pick. And it's a position where you can get a franchise left tackle most likely. I think one of the 4 guys are going to be there, and all 4 should be franchise left tackles. You could get a big name wide receiver like CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy with the 11th overall spot. While edge is important, you can't give up the 11th overall pick for Yannick Ngakoue. You just can't do it. The Jets aren't in a position to do that. If they were a team like Baltimore, the Chiefs, and of course if they had cap space too. But that's a move to put you over the top. The Jets are not in that position. They just have too many holes. If you were like, hey, we had a nice season, we're really like a pass rusher away from being a championship level team, you pull the trigger on that. You give up your first rounder, you have 25-year-old Yannick Ngakoue, and you go after it. Jets aren't in that position, unfortunately. They have way too many holes on this team. And if you're watching this on Monday, last night, The Jets NBC Sports Network was airing the Jets versus the Cowboys opening night from 2011. And it was a really nice comeback win for the New York Jets. It was a great game. Big Revis interception to ice it, essentially. But what I've noticed, I didn't watch the whole game, but I remember a lot of that game from watching it live. It's almost a decade ago, which is crazy. But when you look at the 2011 team, even though they went 8-8 and missed the playoffs, we know they collapsed at the end of the year, but they had so much depth and a lot more talent on that team. That team is miles more talented than where this Jets team is. By a lot. Offensive line, so much better. Prime Revis, Cromartie on the other side, Jim Leonard. They were still able to get pressure with the guys that they had. Calvin Pace setting the edge. No Sean Ellis anymore, but you were still able to get pressure with Sione Puha and guys like that. It was a good team. They went 8-8. The Jets still have holes. They have a lot of holes. They don't have nearly the same talent. There's pieces. I think Sam Darnold could be very good in this league. I do. I don't trust Adam Gase. I don't think they have the depth yet. They have work to be done. And it's kind of fitting that we're closing with that statement in an NFL Draft Mailbag show. Because everything I just said could be cleared away with one big draft. Look at what happened. I was just talking about the big years of Jets football, 09, 10, 11. 3 years in a row where that was a good football team. Where was that team built from? The 2006 NFL Draft. You had DeBrickashaw Ferguson, franchise left tackle. Nick Mangold, franchise center. Leon Washington in the 4th round. Brad Smith, Eric Smith. You had a lot of guys in that one draft class who you got a bunch out of. A lot out of that draft class. You need a franchise-changing draft. And Joe Douglas could be that guy. But as I sit here today, the Jets have way too many holes to get involved in trading draft picks away for a player. They're not in that spot yet. They're really not. But hopefully, in a few weeks, we're talking about how we thought Joe Douglas had a good draft. And in a couple of years, we're talking about some Pro Bowlers, some All-Pros. Oh, boy, would that be fun. Would that be a lot of fun. But I just want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Mailbag Show. Pretty much just answered questions this episode about the NFL Draft. I'm assuming that's going to be the way things are going to go leading up to it. It's going to be draft heavy. I understand that. We're going to get into other stuff too, I'm sure, on the channel, so make sure to stick around. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're watching on there, or if you are listening on your favorite podcatcher, make sure to subscribe, leave a rating and a review. That really helps us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm Matt O'Leary. This is Just Jets. I'll talk to you next time.